Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, YouTubers. This is Jerry Diamond with How to Get Out of Babylon. And I'm going to be reading again from The Enchanted Hour by Megan Cox Gurdon. Alright. And I'm doing this overall. I'm hoping that my grandchildren will be able to listen to me read and connect with me somehow and say, I want to hear Grandpa read, I want to hear Grandpa read. Because right as it is, I don't see my grandchildren much at all due to unforeseen circumstances and weird things like my children not liking me anymore and having something against me that they think I did wrong, which they're wrong in, but hey, they got their opinion and it's wrong. That's okay. I understand that. But be that as it may, God's gonna deal with life. Okay. Where was I at? I don't even remember. Should I have marked it? I did. I turned the page down. Okay, let me see. We're reading chapter 1. What reading to children does to their brains. I got as far as I could. Yeah, okay, I see it. I remember now. I should mark it too. I didn't. Let me see how I can see. I'll sit just facing this, and there we go. All right. Squeaky chair. Sorry about that, guys. Beloved, I'm sorry. Get me a little bit closer here. Get you a bit closer to me. All right. All right, stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Okay. Damn it. I gotta put my legs up on something. I need a reclining chair. Pray for me for that. This is hard on my knees. It's hard on my feet. It's hard on my body. I gotta sit back. Otherwise I can't do this. I need a hassock or something. Maybe an inflatable one. Maybe I'll get an inflatable blow-up footrest for myself. That puts you farther away from me. That's just too bad, I guess. Can't get this much closer. Oh, shit. Oh, well. Life is hard. It's harder when you're stupid, yeah. Okay. I don't know how long I can read. I don't know if I can finish this chapter, but I'll try. I'm going to read about 20 minutes, so. That was what? Well, you might ask, what of it? It is logical that a brain accustomed to certain stimuli is going to develop a greater capacity to handle those stimuli. Why does it matter? What difference does it make? Okay. Paragraph where we left off was, I'll read a sentence. Children with greater experience of being read to were, it seemed, better at summoning images in their mind's eye than young children who hadn't been exposed to lots of books and reading aloud. Dr. Hutton's group has since published 2 additional first-of-their-kind fMRI-based papers, another MRI, involving preschoolers and the effects of reading aloud. See, I'm going to try to really pronounce my words better. I know I've skipped too many and I mumble and I slur things, so I'm going to try to be much better at that. This is going to help my reading too. And they say that just reading to yourself out loud it makes you more intelligent and better. So hopefully I'll get more intelligent and better. Very possible. Okay. 2 additional first-of-their-kind MRI-based magnetic resonance imaging based papers involving preschoolers and the effects of reading aloud. One of them found that children who express more interest in listening to stories have greater activation in their cerebellum, the part of the brain that helps orchestrate skill refinement. Well, you might ask, what of it? It's logical that a brain accustomed to certain stimuli is going to develop a greater capacity to handle those stimuli. Why does it matter? What difference does it make? What difference does it make? It matters because children's early years are a time of such intense formation. The young brain is plastic, adaptable, and growing like mad. In the first 12 months, a baby's brain doubles in size. By a child's third birthday, his brain has completed 85% of all the growth it will ever have. The sensitive period when synapses are forming for language and many other higher cognitive function peaks when a child is 2. By the end of the first 5 years, a child has passed through all the most rapid stages of development involving language, emotional control, vision, hearing, and habitual ways of responding. Early experiences in the firing and wiring of neurons, when they fire together, they wire together, they fire together, or something like that. Early experiences in the firing and wiring of neurons creates the architecture of a small child's mind, laying the pathways for future thought and reasoning. Reading storybooks turns out to be an extraordinarily efficient and productive way to cause messages to zing from one part of the brain to another, creating and enforcing those important neural connections. Reading aloud is so constructive in this regard, in fact, that in 2014, the American Academy of Pediatrics advised its 62,000 member doctors to recommend daily reading aloud to the parents and children they see in their medical practices. Reading regularly with young children, the group's policy paper read, stimulates optimal patterns of brain development and strengthens parent-child relationships in a critical time in child development, which in turn builds language, literacy, and social emotional skills that last a lifetime. Optimal patterns of brain development, exclamation point. It's not a complete sentence. Stronger parent-child relationships. No, not a sentence. Skills that last a lifetime. That's recording right. If reading aloud were a pill, every child in the country would get a prescription. Instead, we're giving them screens. Yeah. We're dumbifying them. Stupidifying them. It is no longer possible to think about children and their welfare without considering the effects of technology. It is no longer possible to think about children and their welfare without considering the effects of technology. Today, screens have entered even the most private and once protected spheres of childhood. The consequences, both good and bad, are manifesting at every economic level and in every kind of family. According to one recent study, almost half of young children now have an electronic tablet or device of their own. Children aged 8 and under are spending an average of nearly 2.5 hours every day on screens. Averages do not, of course, reflect individual lives. Lots of very young children are spending far more time online than that. Other children are even more absorbed, with teens spending an average of 6.5 hours a day using screen media, with more than a quarter of them on screens for 8 or more hours, most of their non-school waking time. And this is all before virtual reality goes mainstream. Oh boy, wait till that happens. Talk about the pornography industry. When a child is watching a video story on a laptop or tablet, the act may appear indistinguishable from his looking at a story in a picture book while someone reads it to him. In each case, his eyes are taking in a series of illustrations, his ears are hearing the voice of a narrator, and his brain is making sense of what he sees and hears. But there is a powerful difference. These two means of receiving a story are in fact radically dissimilar, and given the ubiquity of screens and the amount of time kids spend on them, they diverge in ways that are profound, eloquent, and worrying. Another first of its kind study that Dr. Hutton and his colleagues conducted in 2017 suggests how and why this is the case. The researchers' goal this time was to expand their range of comparison by looking at brain activity when young children were listening to stories, when they were hearing stories while looking at illustrations, the classic picture book experience, and finally when the same children were watching animated entertainment. We'll talk later about the value of listening on its own, without pictures, as you or I might do with an audiobook. But for the moment, I'll ask you to consider the contrast between a storybook and a story video. You can see the difference. Video requires no brains. You're being spoon-fed. This time, the Cincinnati children's team put together 28 children between the ages of 3 and 5 through the scanner, one by one, each time conducting a 3-stage investigation of their brain activity. Each stage lasted for 5 minutes. To establish a baseline, the researchers collected images of what was happening when children were resting in the scanner, looking up at the projection of a smiley face emoji. Next, the image was removed and the experiment began. One by one, separated by intervals of rest, the preschoolers lay in the dark, listening through headphones to stories about varying levels of visual stimulus. First came the Sandcastle Contest by Robert Munch, read by the author. The children heard the story, but they saw no pictures. For stage 2, the young children listened to another Munch story, Andrew's Loose Tooth, also read by the author, and accompanied this time by illustrations depicting scenes from the story. In the final phase, the children watched and listened to an animated version of Munch's The Fire Station. The objective was to see what happened in each circumstance in specific brain networks that support early literacy skills. The clinicians were looking at 5 areas: the cerebellum, the coral-shaped place at the base of the skull that is believed to support skill refinement, the default mode network, which is involved internally directed processes such as introspection, creativity, and self-awareness, the visual imagery network, which involves higher order visual and memory areas and is the brain's means of seeing pictures in the mind's eye, the semantic network, which is how the brain extracts the meaning of languages, and the visual perception network, which supports the processing of visual stimuli. The clinicians measured the activation of these brain networks during each type of story, paying particular attention to how connected and synchronized they were. Okay, you're following that? I'm going to go over that a little bit. I wasn't sure which was the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it's at 5. And that's about all I'm going to read. When I finish this, I'm done. The objective was to see what happened in each circumstances. Blah, blah, blah. The clinicians were looking at 5 areas. Okay, cerebellum, which is the coral base at the base of the skull, blah, blah, blah. Skill activity. The visual imagery network, which involves higher order visual and memory areas and is the brain's means of seeing pictures in the mind's eye. The semantic network, which is how the brain extracts the meaning of languages, and the visual perception network, which supports the processing of visual stimuli. That's only 4. What one did I miss, baby? The cerebellum. Okay, the default mode network, 2, which is involved with internally directed processes such as introspection, creativity, and self-awareness. The visual imagery network, higher order visual and memory areas, and is the brain's means of seeing pictures in the mind's eye. Semantic network, which is how the brain extracts the meaning of language, and the visual perception network, 5, which supports the processing of visual stimuli. This is complicated. Like I said, it's not an easy book to read. Not an easy book to follow, I know. So get a copy of it, follow along, I guess that's all you can do. Or read it yourself. Read it yourself. I blow raspberries in your general direction if you don't like the way I'm reading it. So I'm going to try to read the rest of this section. The results were breathtaking. The breathtaking were results. The results were breathtaking. Dr. Hutton walked me through the chart displaying the team's preliminary conclusion.